Ladies and gentlemen, hope you are doing well wherever you are. Welcome to our news analysis where we don't sugarcoat, but we always put news as it is. President William Ruto has officially surrendered to opposition. How? According to the news we have received on our news desk, Ruto has yielded to pressure from the opposition side regarding compensation for protesters who were killed in Kenya, saying that they will receive their compensation. This comes after the DCP political party deputy party leader Cleophas Malala announced on Saturday, 13th of this month, June, that if President William Ruto's administration failed to compensate the families who lost their children during the protest before the 25th of this month, the opposition would organize massive demonstrations aimed at bringing the country to a standstill in order to compel the government to release the compensation. However, the government has decided to extend the mandate of the compensation panel by 90 days, a move that critics argue is intended to avert a possible outbreak of protests planned for the 25th of this month. Before I continue, dear viewer, wherever you are, as you continue watching this clip, please, I request, I beseech you, don't forget to hit the like button if you have not subscribed to this channel yet. I kindly ask you to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you will be notified whenever we upload new content. Thank you for your support and be blessed by our supreme being who lives in heaven. Welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, President William Ruto has extended the mandate of the panel of experts tasked with guiding compensation for victims of human rights violations and protest-related abuses, giving the team an additional 90 days to complete its work. The decision, announced through a gazette notice, pushes the panel's deadline to September 5th this year, 2026. And actually, opposition had threatened to demonstrate to compel the government to compensate those families who lost their children. Now they have extended another 90 days. I don't know what is really happening in Kenya, raising fresh questions about when victims and their families will finally receive compensation promised by the government. So people are lamenting at the moment. But Ruto had surrendered by saying the government will compensate them. But the news we have currently, sometimes we are not understanding. Ladies and gentlemen, according to the note signed by Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service, Felix Koskei, the extension took effect on June 5th, 2026 this year, and is intended to allow the panel sufficient time to fulfill its responsibilities. The panel had originally been established to help shape a framework for compensation and restorative justice for Kenyans affected by human rights violations, particularly those linked to demonstrations and public protest. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the news we have currently. The move comes at a sensitive moment. For months, families who lost relatives, during protests, as well as survivors who suffered injuries and other violations, have been waiting for the government's promised compensation program. Some victims had threatened to return to the streets to protest what they described as unnecessary delays in implementing the scheme. And actually, I'm suspecting this compensation might take time. The extension also means that President William Ruto's earlier target of compensating victims by June 2026 is unlikely to be met. In March, the president himself publicly announced that the government has allocated 2 billion Kenyan shillings through a supplementary budget to support the compensation process. He expressed confidence, ladies and gentlemen, that payments would begin before the middle of this year. But now, what we are being told is somehow different. Speaking during a joint parliamentary group meeting involving members of the United Democratic Alliance UDA and the Orange Democratic Movement ODM, Ruto stated that authorities had already identified and profiled victims with assistance from the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, and he noted that the compensation program would cover victims affected between 2017 and 2024, expanding the scope beyond the 2024 protest alone. So we are surprised with the news we have received through a Gazette notice. However, the latest extension suggests that the process has proven more complex than initially anticipated. Developing a legally sound and transparent compensation framework requires extensive consultation, verification of claims, and public participation. Ladies and gentlemen, this is repeatedly emphasized that reparations must follow constitutional principles and established legal procedures. In updates issued earlier this year, the commission said this commission I'm referring is KNCHR, said it had begun stakeholder consultations involving victims, civil society organizations, government institutions, and other interested groups to create a credible national framework for compensation and preparations, or rather reparations in this country, Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Actually, it was 1st of April 2026 this year, if I'm not wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, this issue of compensating protest victims gained national attention following several waves of demonstrations over recent years. Kenya has witnessed repeated protests related to electoral disputes, economic hardships, and governance concerns. Human rights organizations have documented cases involving excessive use of force, unlawful killings, enforced disappearances, and injuries sustained during crowd control operations. Ladies and gentlemen, we really wonder. But international organizations have consistently called for accountability and support for victims. Reports by groups such as Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International have stressed the importance of ensuring that victims receive justice, truth, and appreciate reparations as part of broader efforts to strengthen human rights protections. Legal developments have also shaped the current process. Earlier court rulings highlighted the constitutional role of KNCHR in matters relating to reparations and human rights protection, prompting the government to restructure aspects of the compensation initiative to align with legal requirements. KNCHR has since maintained that any framework adopted must be transparent, inclusive, and capable of withstanding judicial scrutiny. For affected families, ladies and gentlemen, however, procedural explanations provide little comfort. Men have spent years seeking recognition, accountability, and financial support following the loss of loved ones or life-changing injuries. The repeated postponements have highlighted frustration among those who believed government promises could finally bring a closure. The extension, ladies and gentlemen, of this panelist mandate therefore represents both an opportunity and a challenge. On one hand, additional time may allow experts to build a stronger and more comprehensive compensation framework. On the other hand, every delay risks undermining public confidence in the government's commitment to restorative justice. Ultimately, this process is about more than financial compensation. It is a test of Kenya's willingness to acknowledge past wrongs, uphold constitutional rights, and strengthen public trust in state institutions. Okay? Whether the government delivers meaningful reparations by September could significantly influence how future generations judge the country's response to victims of political unrest and human rights violations. For many Kenyans still waiting for justice, the next 90 days may determine whether official promises finally translate into action. But opposition had threatened to demonstrate to make Kenya stand still on 25th of this month to compel the government to compensate those families who lost their children. But now the government has extended about 90 days now. So what does that mean? They want to show that they are ready to pay, yes, but not now. What do you think? Ladies and gentlemen, let's meet in the next video. But if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, I'm requesting you, I'm not commanding you, I'm begging you to subscribe. And remember to turn on the notification bell so that the moment we upload any new video clip, you will be notified that our new YouTube channel, Mwana Kenya Media, has uploaded a new video clip to watch. This is the only platform where we don't sugarcoat things, but always put news as it is. Ladies and gentlemen, be blessed. Let's meet in the next video. Bye-bye.